What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So we also have the Lamborghini SC20, which, by the way, I have never actually heard of this car before. I'm not going to lie, I kind of thought it was like the Aventador J, which of course was in that lovely game known as Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012. I have to say though, this thing really does look absolutely insane though. For example, I really do like the back wing on this car with like the overall like blue going around the entire thing back there. You can kind of see something like that on some of the vehicles and like GTA and stuff like that, but I do like the way the blue does go around this car. You also see like the really nice rims with like the white lines on them. So I would say custom tires on a vehicle like this really isn't going to be needed. I should most likely put a helmet on though, because one Dragonfly and you are most likely going to get TKO'd while driving this car. I have to say though, seeing a car without a windshield really is going to be the weirdest thing ever. Even though just slightly depending on the camera angle you can see like a small tiny windshield down there, which I would say is probably not going to do anything. And then of course moving over to first person view, you can see the insane look of the interior in this car. I also really like the way you can also see like the Alcantara like interior, and I really do love the way you can actually see like the blue stitching going around it. And of course one thing I did find kind of cool, the left side by the left mirror, you can also see the stamp that does say SC20. That is going to be a pretty cool thing. You also see that in cars like even the Ford Bronco, and of course many of the Dodge Challengers, but if I had to guess, basically any special edition car probably does have that. And of course you also have the RPM reader there, and also the gear indicator as well, which is pretty dope. And also in very tiny letters you can see like the speed of the bottom there, which is going to be in kilometers. I guess it's going to be a pretty cool little feature there, but overall I do like the interior and the detail in this vehicle. And then of course in the middle we also see the small screen that does show like the media and the telephone part. And then of course you also see all of the buttons in this vehicle as well, which I have to admit, by the way, seeing a car with a lot of buttons over a gigantic screen is most likely going to be pretty dang nice to see in a car. But overall though, I would say the SC20 is most likely going to be a lot of players' choice over the new Bugatti Atlantic concept. Now besides all that though, I do want to go test out the lovely SC20 and see what this car can do. I also do know this car is going to be new in the hypercar category, so there is going to be a lot of vehicles in the hypercar class that are going to be great, and of course at the same time they're probably going to be awful. This is most likely going to be a thing that we will probably be seeing a lot more often, with a lot of new vehicles being added. Like some might be good, then of course some will probably never be used again. I have to say though, the overall stability of this vehicle going around a couple of corners is pretty dang insane though. Like it doesn't slide whatsoever like the Atlantic concept did, and I would say that's probably going to be a pretty amazing thing with a car in this game. I most likely will have to adjust the settings on this car as well, but let's see what I can get the top speed of this vehicle to. Now if I did have to guess though, it's probably going to be extremely similar to most other hypercars in Motorfest, where basically all of them do around 290 to 300 miles an hour. Let's see right now in this straightaway. So 297 right there. I did fly off the road there, but 297 miles an hour is going to be pretty dang impressive. Funnily enough, it's also going to be faster than the new SC Atlantic concept looking car as well, which I would say that thing is most likely going to do around 290 even going down a hill. I was pretty surprised with that car being a new Bugatti, but I would say they can't make every Bugatti do 375 million miles an hour, because nobody else is going to use anything. 298 miles an hour right there once again before, crashing, unfortunately. And I hit the wrong button on the escape. But 298 miles an hour is going to be fairly impressive in this vehicle. I would like to admit, by the way, a lot of the hypercars are most likely going to come down to the way they handle, and of course like the overall acceleration with them. At least compared to like the Crew 2 before, where basically every car was insanely quick. And of course a lot of the cars were going to be way too fast for that matter. Most likely a lot of the Bugattis pretty much owning everything, and many of them hitting well over 320 miles an hour, like it's a walk in the park. Now jumping into an event here at the SC20, I did want to test this vehicle out against the AI being on level 5 once again. We all do know the AI in this game are definitely going to be something else, but I did want to go on the Lamborghini website and read a bit about the SC20. So this thing is of course going to be a naturally aspirated V12, putting out 770 horsepower, which is pretty dang insane. And of course it is indeed going to be an Aventador, so you can definitely see that in the way this car is designed, which I would say is probably not going to be shocking because, you know, that was the initial idea of it. But of course this is going to be like, I guess, a one-off vehicle that was, I guess, custom designed for someone else. And I really do think they basically hit the entire, like, I guess you could say nail on the head or whatever you want to call that with this car. Like, it really is basically going to be perfect with its overall design. And I really do hate to say this, but I would say most people are probably going to be driving the Lamborghini a lot more than the Bugatti. And that's most likely going to come down to what in the world was that? I gotta try to come back in this race now. But that's most likely going to come down to the fact of many people not really wanting to run Bugattis because there is too many of them. And I would say that's not going to be a terrible argument because there is 16 Bugattis in this game. And I am really happy to see something like a Lamborghini being added. I really do hope we most likely see other ones. I would say one of the most requested Lamborghinis ever is probably going to be the Zesto Elemento. I definitely can't blame you on that, guys, because I love that car in Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2010. That thing is by far one of my favorite cars to use in that game. Like, I could not imagine if that car was added into Motorfest, it would most likely be absolutely incredible. So funnily enough, I did end up changing around my pro settings just a bit, and I basically jumped back into this event. And it really is funny how much better this car is by just adjusting the ARB slightly. And of course not crashing every 5.5 seconds. Also, big note here, make sure you slow down around corners just a bit. I know how shocking is that probably going to be, but overall I would say though the SC20 is probably going to be a fairly great car overall. I am definitely going to be trying out this and the Atlantic concept in like future events, especially in something like a summit to really see what a car like this can do. And of course most likely competing against some of the better hypercars. Like, I have been running something like the Lamborghini Countach recently with basically no pro settings on it, and I have been very impressed with how that car does handle. Like, it's not going to be the fastest thing out there, but I would say like the overall launch and acceleration on these Lamborghinis is definitely worth a look. Now, I do know a lot of people can most likely argue that many of the main vehicles are probably going to remain something like a Bugatti basically being on top, but I have to admit though, using something like a Lamborghini Aventador or even like the Countach, I would definitely recommend trying out these cars. Like, I do know they're probably not going to be the best possible vehicles out there, and I do know a lot of players are most likely going after like the best possible vehicles they can. Of course, going after like the fastest times for the summits, in return going after like platinum for them, but I would definitely recommend trying out the Countach or even something like the SC20 here. This is also going to be an insanely cool looking car, and I definitely will be testing it out more. I will also be using these vehicles in future summits to really see how they can compete, and most likely go against some of the better cars in these classes. I really do feel like many of these cars are going to have a chance, and not only can they compete in the summits, but also in PvP. But overall though, I would definitely recommend checking out the Elite Bundle because I do know this car is probably going to be a lot more than what it is right now in that said bundle. Similar to the Bugatti basically being $3 million for this and that car. I would recommend checking them out, and also let me know what you think about the SC20 in the comments below.